Hi, everybody. I am Rayanna Starr, your host of the Unstoppable Real Estate Investor podcast, going strong for about 3 years now. This will be the last year of the podcast. I'm shifting gears and shifting my focus in my career and my business. And so when we get to the middle of December, that will be the end of the podcast as we know it, because I'm moving in another direction. But it's been a fun ride, and I'm going to be announcing that for the rest of this year so people can prepare. The purpose of this podcast is to build community, share resources, and highlight people that have made it in real estate as an investor, because let's face it, it's not an easy industry. It requires a huge learning curve. And if you came in through a training company, you're sold the dream, but you're not sold just how hard the work is and how much skill is required to succeed in this business, how much tenacity, perseverance, and persistence, and being resilient. So we highlight the people who have been able to forge their own path, be trailblazers, and succeed in their unique way, and then invite them on this podcast to share their experience in hopes that it inspires you to find your own creative little niche in real estate investing. So with me is Ginger Crystal Faith. Like, what a name. I thought Rayanna Starr was a cool name, but Ginger Crystal Faith. Wow, that's cool. So welcome to the podcast, Ginger.
Happy to be here, Rihanna.
And the way this is going to go is we're going basically Oprah style. It's an interview style. We're going to find out a little bit about who you were before real estate, when the real estate bug bit you, what you started off doing as a real estate investor, what your journey's been like, how long you've been in it, some of the challenges you've overcome, just mindset, what you're doing currently, and then a plug, a pitch, a promote, an ask. And then the last question that wraps the whole thing up with a big shiny red bow is, if you were to jump up on a rooftop and had a captive audience hanging on your every word, what would your advice be to them? So we're just going to flow. Periodically, I will interrupt you, not to be rude, but because you've said something brilliant and there's a gold nugget or a diamond in there that I want to dust off and highlight and dig into a little bit. So I'll say, hey, can I just interrupt you for a minute? So I don't want that to throw you off, but that may happen because I just want to emphasize some things. So how's all that sound to you, Ginger?
Sounds fun.
Yeah. Cool. So first off, Rose really represents me well. She's the one who goes out and finds all the guests. What was it about our invitation to be on this podcast that appealed to you, that you wanted to jump on here and share your story with us?
Well, I love the fact that you are real. You're right. I've been to many seminars where people talk about the dream, but they don't talk about the work. And there's a strange, interesting nuance in our culture, which is actually, I think, very dangerous. And that's you can have the rewards without the work. And
Yeah.
it's been infiltrating everything. I see it. It's in social media in spades, and I think it's very dangerous. And I think what you're highlighting is, hey, you need to take action. You need that's right. You need right, and it's really critical. And I think that I want to be a voice for the truth, and be
Amen,
counter.
sister. We are aligned in that regard.
Right. Countermanding the thing, the concept that you should get the results without the work. Being a TikTok star, being a YouTube star, whatever it is. And the fact of the matter is that just doesn't work. And that's just not the way the world works. So I want to be a voice for that. And that's the reason why I decided to do podcasts. But there are other reasons, but that's one of the reasons. One of the other reasons why I love doing podcasts is that I believe that there is a war to keep us poor as women in this country right now, and yet there are ways that women can actually rise above the way rise above the tidal wave of manipulation so that they can actually succeed and forge their way and become
In
financially.
spite of the male-dominated authoritarian patriarchy.
Well, yeah, that and the media manipulation. The world is coming. Our country is leaning toward a more socialistic orientation, and the American dream is dying for many people. It's non-existent for many people. But I want to be a voice for the opposite, that you can forge your way. You can still have the American dream. It may be harder in some ways, but we can rise above it, and we can succeed, because I'm seeing people succeed despite the challenges. The challenges may be greater, but you can overcome. And I want to be
Great, I agree, and I love where you're coming from, and we could probably talk for hours because there's a lot of wisdom in your words. We're totally aligned. But yeah, it's yeah, I really appreciate what you're saying and that you're walking your talk. Before we got on the broadcast, before we went live, everybody, Ginger and I were just getting a little preliminary familiarity with each other. And she was telling me she lives in the San Francisco Bay Area. She owns a home that is completely paid off, has an ADU, and is currently putting an addition on there. And you're single?
Yes, I'm single. Plus that ADU, I mean, the addition I'm putting on, I'll be Airbnb-ing it.
And the San Francisco Bay Area is one of the most expensive places to live in the country. So the fact that she's accomplished that, and she bought that place like in 2006, and it's
Worst
already
time. The worst time.
at the peak of the market, and she's paid the mortgage off. So this is a woman who walks her talk. So let's start off, Ginger Crystal Faith. Let's start off with talk a little bit about who you were and what you were doing professionally, personally. Not like I started off in kindergarten, not like that, but who were you and what were you up to before you got introduced to real estate? And then we'll go into how was it that you got into real estate, and then we'll go from there.
Well, I've always been a personal development junkie. So I was listening to Earl Nightingale when I was 17.
Oh, wow, you're dating yourself, girl.
Yeah, no, I still listen to him today. He's phenomenal.
Mhm.
Love Earl Nightingale. But the book that really set me on my course was Unlimited Power by Tony Robbins, because Tony Robbins had the energy that is like nobody else. He still does, right? He has the energy.
Yeah.
And his message wasn't unique by any means, but his message was very powerful. And he was able to collate. He's always been a great collator of great messages. So I started reading his book as well as Robert Allen's book. Robert Allen wrote the book Money Down, No Money Down. And he was a big guru back in the 70s and 80s. I'm not sorry, wrong, 80s
In
and 90s.
San Diego, he used to
80s
speak
and
at some of
90s,
our
yeah.
networking groups. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, really? Oh, wow. I never met him
Yeah.
in person, but I read his book, and he gave concepts about how to build wealth and retire early. And so I kind of dovetailed in my mind Tony Robbins, you go, 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 you can do it, with Robert Allen's What to Do. And one of his concepts was buy one house per year for 10 years, one single family house, start paying them off, and that's your retirement, because they'll continue to appreciate. Buy real estate right and wait was his one of his many catchphrases. So I started to do that, but I thought, well, you know what, that's a long time. How about if I buy a 6 units, and I can get a jump start? So in 1994, I bought an old, not dilapidated, it just looked dilapidated, Victorian, in a great neighborhood. And I bought it. It was on the market for 150,000. I bought it
Was
for
it a
9.
single
It
family?
was a 6 family,
Okay.
Victorian, with a widow's peak on the top and mahogany library, and like the crown molding was like 10 inches wide, and inside, and the hardwood floors. But on the outside, it looked like crap. It had like 3 different colors and things, and so it looked terrible on the outside. So the first thing I did was paint it cream and purple and pink, like a painted lady, because I had this crazy young vision about I wanted it to be pretty. I must have picked that up somewhere. And as soon as I did, I had people knocking on my door asking if they could rent out the how, the different apartments. And I started making money right away. And the interest rates were 15.5% with 2 points, you
Whoa!
know.
Yeah, what, 1994? So this
Yeah.
is pre 2008 crash.
Right.
I
So
hear, I hear a trembling coming. Yeah.
yeah. So well, actually, this was after the SNL bailout crash, the SNL crash. So the
In
prices
between
had
the Great Crash and the Great Recession. Yeah.
right. So I had friends who were buying apartments when I was really young. I had no money, but they were buying apartments like 1990, 91. And I was like, this is too expensive. I don't know. I've always been value driven, and I don't know why I said that. I was like really young, but I was like, this is too expensive. So I'm not going to pay that. And of course, my first house was after the crash of the SNL crash. So I got it a great deal, and
What'd you pay for it?
90,000 for a 6 family Victorian house, about
God, and what's
7,000
it worth
square feet.
today? Like millions and millions.
Well, my ex-husband absconded with it at the end. I just said, go take it, get out of my life, that type of thing. So but I'm sure it's worth a lot more now. And I'm sure the big thing is the rents are a lot more than I was getting at the time. But then, I fixed it up, and then I bought another 6 family, and then and because I pulled money out, I lowered the insurance. Only Lloyd's of London would insure this crazy house, and then I lowered the insurance once it looked nice and it was filled. And it was just natural, nothing, it felt natural. It didn't feel like now there's books on this and courses on this. And to me, it just felt like, of course, because I'm always value driven, right? I'm like, oh, this insurance is too expensive. Let's drive that down. Or this is let's drive that down. So, and then I pulled money out. I bought another 6 family, and then I got a nineplex, and then I flipped my first house in '96. So everything happened really
Yeah,
quickly.
so you started with investing in rentals first,
Yeah.
then start with fix and flips because a lot of people don't have the capital, so they'll start with. So, but let's back up a second. What were you doing before real estate?
I had a business. I was always trying little businesses. So when I was a teenager, I had a window cleaning business, so that made decent money. I was also a minister in my church, like really, I did like 20 to 30 hours a week. So I was like kind of working myself ragged. But then I started another business. It was a mobile flower business that really took off, and I was making really good money really quickly. And I was only working part-time. So I did that. And then I saved up enough money for a down payment on this house. 20, I have 25 grand. But I remember being really tight with the money. And at the end, I didn't have enough money for the insurance. And because nobody told me I had to have insurance, right? So my realtor gave me the money for the insurance, and I paid him back 2 weeks later. So it was like that tight. Everything was that tight, but it all worked out. And so that's what I was doing. So I am a believer in starting a business of some sort.
Very
Something
entrepreneurial. Yeah.
right now, today, the demands are for the trades. So even if you can either know how to run a business or run people, or you have a trade of any kind, those are huge. So even back then, the window cleaning business, we made good money. At the time I was married, and so we could make good money on the window cleaning. I made better money on the flower business, but yeah, finding what people need. It's still, we talked about, I believe that there's, a war to keep us poor. The big businesses are, you know, what appears to be conspiring to drive out small businesses and being backed up by the government,
And
right?
yet the wave of the future is entrepreneurship. That is the wave of freedom for everyone.
That's the wave of freedom. It's
Yeah,
just
it
a little
really
harder.
is.
You have to fight a little harder today for it than you did back when I was that age, with a lot of licensing and, regulation and all of that. But oftentimes, if you just start something with a service that's mobile, I believe that's a really great way to start. If you can start with a mobile service and actually work, because it's clean, it's easy, it's very light, and you can move quickly, and you don't have
Yeah, it's easier to
heavy
manage
rent.
than, say, a manufacturing type of business. Yeah.
Yeah, you can always
Or a
gravitate towards
product
something
driven
else.
business. Yeah.
You can always gravitate to something else, but if you start that way, then you can learn the
You get
basics without
momentum.
tremendous
Yeah.
overhead, without a big fear of failure. And then you can grow as you get more money. You can grow to the next level, grow to the next level. So I definitely believe, I think that real estate and entrepreneurism is a 1-2 punch. Later, Robert Kiyosaki talked about that, but I was doing that like before he was even around. Just like that just seemed like the thing to do. You get the cash, and then you invest it in real estate. And I know people who've done it in way bigger amounts and ways than I have. And they'll get a bunch of cash and then they invest in commercial. I recently was in Scottsdale, Arizona, and a friend of mine, we were talking to a great commercial real estate attorney and another broker, and they were saying that the guy who sold GoDaddy had $5 billion when he sold it, and he just invested in a bunch of commercial real estate around the Scottsdale area. So he just like dumped money into it. So there are levels with everything, right? So, but that's not me. I didn't do that, but I did do that basic thing. I earn the money and then invest in real estate. So, yeah.
So you were making good money in your businesses, so you had the capital, you were financially disciplined, so you saved money. So you really didn't do it in a traditional way that's taught in a lot of the real estate training, where you wholesale and rehab first to develop some capital to then invest in rentals. You hit the ground running investing in rentals because you used your businesses to fund and provide the capital. And immediately the first thing you did was buy a sixplex, fix it up. And then you did that again, and then you graduated to 9 units. So where are you today? Like, what's the focus? What's the portfolio? You 2 years into investing, you started to fix and flip. Tell us how you've evolved since then, on how you've progressed over the last 20 years.
I guess like most of us, if we're entrepreneurial and oriented, we tend to go with the market and where the opportunities are. So because I'm small, I'm flexible. So and also life happens, and so you move and flex with life. You do things that are going to propel you to the next level while disposing of what's no longer working. So for me, I left New England. I left my husband. We got a divorce, and we sold off most of the real estate, except he wanted to keep that Victorian. So he kept the Victorian, and I moved to California. And then I became a mortgage broker in 2001. And so I processed and originated over 500 loans by myself. But I developed a really good relationship with my clients at that time. But I didn't buy any real estate because I got sticker shock when I moved to California.
Yeah.
So I didn't do anything, which really protected me, because when '06 happened, my income went from here to zero overnight. And luckily I saved, so I was okay. But saving the money didn't feel good, because I had just bought a house at the top of the market. So I was still in a like, oh my God, what do I do
The
mode.
house that you're in right now.
The house that I'm still in today. Yeah. So what happened was, so I was helping clients try to work their way through the craziness.
All the predatory loans and how to survive and
Yeah.
modifications and short sales and all that. Yeah.
All of that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So a lot of mortgage brokers went out of business, and then they just went into, uh, fast food. They just kind of like caved. And I didn't cave. I stayed the course. I still have my mortgage broker license, but my clients came to me instead of bad mouthing me as the predator, because it wasn't that. It was like they had situations, they were losing their jobs, getting a divorce, they needed to move out of state.
And you were helping them.
I was helping them. They were coming to me as the expert, which was gratifying. It was stressful, but it was gratifying that they were coming to me instead of running from me. So I helped them through a lot of that. But that was also a time.
Pause. Finish that statement.
But it was also a time where opportunities started coming up around 2009 with REOs. Okay.
Why do you think they were coming to you? What were you doing that was different than other mortgage brokers?
I had always been extremely honest and explicit, and I'm a teacher. Okay, so if a person would come to me and they had whatever the situation was, I was able to unpack and unravel. It was fun. Honestly, that was the most fun part of being a mortgage broker. Everything else was just grunt work and difficult. But being able to unpack, look at their situations and tease it apart, and then create a solution that helped them to breathe easier and be happier, in the next phase. I was always that way. And so they would naturally come to me for advice, for help, whatever. And so when everything turned, they didn't blame me for first of all, I never charged a ton of money. Like I wasn't one of these, 9 points. And there was a lot of people doing that. Everything was very modest. Everything I did was very modest.
It was fair. Yeah.
I made a good living, but it wasn't
You
usury.
weren't predatory.
Correct. And that's just not my style, right? But so they came back to me, and I think that's why, because I was a solutions person. And so when they had a problem, they came back to me because I was a solution person. And at first I didn't have a solution, but eventually I figured out that the best way for them in this situation, because the banks were not cooperating with at the time with modifications very easily. They were so difficult. Banks were so crazy and difficult. But what they would do is short sell their home. So what I figured out finally is if a person could short sell their house, some of my clients had a 700 credit score 6 months later.
Wow.
They asked me to pull their credit 6 months later because again, I could still do the mortgages. So then we would look at the situation, and it was marked paid in full, paid as agreed, because the short sale renegotiated the original contract. And so if it was like 300,000 instead of 700,000, the mortgage, and they paid that, then it was paid as agreed, paid in full according to the new contract.
So you became an expert in short sales and modifications? Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. And I also noticed that the prices of homes had dropped drastically. So now is the time to start investing. So I started flipping, and then I started investing. And that's when I started, because the numbers worked for a brief period of time right then. Later
Makes
on,
up for the house you bought at top of the market.
right? Exactly.
Out, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And eventually, I really burned out because I worked really, really hard during that time, and it was such a compressed, crazy time
and stressful. Yeah,
it was very stressful.
Yeah.
Dealing with the banks, but I catapulted, my knowledge and ability to solve tough problems, and I really became a resource to clients while also buying and sometimes flipping and sometimes investing in real estate. Eventually I thought it would be a good idea to day trade. So I cooled off. I would day trade for a couple of years. That was not a good idea. I do not recommend that to anybody.
That is the most stressful way to
I thought it was going to ease my.
You gotta really
it didn't.
Really gotta know your stuff. Yeah,
yeah. So I don't recommend that to anybody. But I thought, oh, I'm smart. I can do this, but I didn't. And I came back into real estate, and then I gravitated. I'm still a real estate broker, so I help people buy and sell homes. That's like my bread and butter. But on the side, I usually have one big project going on at a time. And so my last flip I sold, we bought it for $2 million. It was a 1,700 square foot home in a luxury area. It was a little dumpy home. And you can check out 1637 Greenwood Avenue in San Carlos. If you see, if you can ever find the before pictures, they're crazy. And we basically demolished it and built it up for about what 1.25 million. We invested in making this house beautiful with my team, and sold it for 4.8. And that was the last one I did. And so, now I'm remodeling my own home right now. So, and then after that's done, I'm on to my next thing. But
Now, what
being
about your portfolio? Were you able to build your rental portfolio back up?
I was able to do that back in 09, 10, 11, 12. Yeah. But recently, I have sold quite a bit of my residential, not all of it, but my residential portfolio. The things that were doing fine, but I felt like the time was done with them, because my next orientation, my next evolution is I've been studying commercial real estate for the last year with the J. Scott Shield Group, and I've got a great network. I've got a network of people. There are about 40 of us, and they take down $1 billion a quarter in distressed commercial assets. And so we collaborate.
Wow.
We talk once a week on Zoom, and then we get together once a quarter. We're getting together next month in Nassau and at the Atlantis in the Bahamas for a business retreat, winter retreat. And we're going to hobnob and see who's doing what and collaborate. So right now I'm working on a couple of deals with a different.
Is it a syndicated group?
No, it's just a pay for the club, pay to belong in the club. It's a club, right? So, but there's a lot.
So you're not all investing in something together.
No,
You're
it's
resources for each other. Got it.
Exactly.
It's like a mastermind.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's exactly what it is. So it's like, oh, I like you, and hey, you got money? I got money, or it's like, what do you have? Or you live over there, So I was looking at a property in Texas outside Austin. So I call my guy Howie. Hey, Howie, and he's like, hey, you want to partner on this? And so now we're collaborating, right? And I've got another deal I'm looking at in Georgia. So one of my best friends, Rube, and her partner James live there. So we're like investigating this property in Georgia. So that's kind of how we're doing it. So it's fun, and they're super. I mean, the caliber of people are the best, and that's a great lesson. It's just always work with the best wherever you can. That's just like
I love that.
Working with the best. It's not about ego. It's zero ego. It's all about aggravation.
Reducing the frustration, aggravation, and
trust. You can trust. Right. You need to trust them. You need to relax and know they got your back. You got, when you say you're going to do something, you do it. When they say they're going to do something, do it. So this is
having integrity and accountability and a sense of responsibility and ownership.
This is a very intense business. Now, residential, commercial, whatever you do. And whatever we can do to mitigate the stress is intelligence. We need to do that. Absolutely need to do that. So by having people who are high quality, you mitigate the stress. Let the stress come from the outside in, not from the inside.
Absolutely. If you master your skills and really know what you're doing, and you're discriminating and selective about the company you keep, then there is no stress in that. The stress is only in what's new or different. The foundation, it's established, it's solid. And then you're just putting your energy into the problem solving of that unique opportunity. You're not worried about if your partner's doing what they're supposed to do. You're not worried about, whoa, do I know? I'm not sure about the numbers. You've got all that handled. So
right there is the secret that's the secret of success. That's right there, what you just said.
It is. Master it. Practice it to master it, and the company you keep.
Yeah.
What would you find? What do you think Ginger has been when you consider your whole journey? Okay. And maybe there's more than one answer to this. What have been your biggest challenges as a real estate investor? And how did you overcome them?
My own weakness and ignorance. It has been an evolution. So I grew up in a very an extraordinarily difficult home, um, where I really shouldn't be where I'm at now. You know, if you really know the story, I shouldn't be here. So what was, I believe I grew up, I don't believe, grew up in a toxic soup environment. And so I thank God for books and the tapes and the learnings. I re-brainwashed myself
You
over
reprogrammed.
and over again with the best thinking I could find. So, you know, Jim Rohn, Tony Robbins, therapy.
You had a high degree of motivation. You had a strong why.
Right. And so, I mean, I thank God when I think of my mind today, I have a beautiful, clean, happy mind. And if stress gets to me, as it does, I will revert back to my old patterns. I know exactly what to do. I've got a huge tool belt to grab, and I go, and then boom, right? So I know how to deal with it. So definitely motivate, like keeping my mind.
Your mindset.
Yeah. When you're filled with the negative, the toxicity, and when I say toxicity, it means what I believe is like fear, guilt, people pleasing. There's all sorts of things into being intimidating, being too agreeable, being too nice. These are not good qualities for a real estate investor. You need you need the opposite qualities, and they have to be. You have to think about this. So when you're growing, you know, when you're becoming stronger, mental strength, I think has been my biggest challenge. And I'm mentally strong. I am mentally strong. I can honestly say that I'm mentally strong, but it's been my biggest challenge. And emotional strength has been so it's always been about me. That the battle is between me and me, you know, because the world, you know, comes at you point blank, you know, and you have to make decisions, and everything matters. So I would say, I mean, if I'm going to be brutally honest, I can't say anything outside of me was my biggest challenge. It was me.
It was
But
mindset, managing your mindset.
mindset, heart set, emotional, like, oh, I'll give you a great example. One day I realized that I was being roped in by somebody in business who was trying to manipulate me. They were trying to lure me into drama. You know, drama? I don't even know what drama is anymore. Okay. But one day she was luring me into drama, and I was listening to her, and I did not respond. It was like big deal. It was such a big deal because my past, like I would just go at it like that's stupid, or that's like, you know, whatever it was, because it was junk, but they were
You
being
rose above it and you were aware you did it. Wasn't that just a great accomplishment?
it was huge to be aware.
Yeah.
Like, wait a minute, I didn't give away my power just now. I didn't give away my power, and I wanted to. I wanted to go back at her, you know. And I was like, that just like, I sat with me for like 2 days. Just, I was like, oh, that was hard. But now that was a huge learning. So that some things like that over the years, like you learn, this way is the orientation of the toxic soup around you. This is the promise of something different, but you don't even know what that is. But you start thinking about it, pulling it in, and then, aha, you get an awareness. And something else happens, and aha, you get an awareness. You stand up for yourself politely but strongly instead of caving in and then feeling like crap, right? So that's been a challenge, but honestly, it's a blessing, because now once it's integrated,
Yeah.
right? It doesn't go
It's
away.
automatic. Yeah.
Your brain and I think your whole consciousness wants to rise to another level. I don't think we want to stay in toxic soup, but many people do. They don't know because they're weak-minded. I'm just honestly, they're weak-minded, they're weak body, soul, whatever. They just don't do anything to rise above it. But once we see a different way, I think the natural orientation is toward health, mental, spiritual, emotional. And so if we find a way that's more healthy, we want to go in that direction. And so we don't tend to slip back unless we get a stressor that interrupts our pattern, and then we need to bolster ourselves, strengthen ourselves, but then again, that's the way of having tools.
Yeah, I for many years was very interested as a coach. I'm always looking at how I can grow, how I can learn, how I can add to my skill set. And for many years, I was fascinated with NLP, neuro linguistic programming, which
I did a month-long training.
Yeah, Tony Robbins popularized it, and
Yes.
I did the first session, and the first, like, the certification, and then went on to get the master's certification. And what I love about NLP is it is pattern interrupts, it's reprogramming, it's using linguistic patterns to rewire the brain and how it remembers something or holds something. And it's always extraordinary to me, even though I've been doing it for years with clients, I've had other NLP coaches, friends of mine, help me work through stuff. I know the mechanics of it, and I'm still fascinated that it works and how simple it is.
It's the best.
I just had a breakthrough in my own experience recently, because I've been in a period for months of existential angst, of just stepping back and looking at myself, my life, my patterns. I'm not a victim, so I'm 100% responsible and at cause in my life. And wow, there's these patterns I'm seeing that I don't like, and it's hard to face that. It's humbling. And I just lost my train of thought. I remember doing a session when I was laid off at Fortune Builders, and I was starting my own coaching business again. And I was in this pattern of really working hard, and didn't even, to the point of unhealthy, didn't realize how stressful my life was. It took people in my life, and it was affecting my health. I had a health crisis. And I had a friend, an old boss that came along for the ride on the NLP training, who did this whole breakthrough session. And it's an intense, throw every NLP skill in the book at you for like a 2 to 2.5 day thing. And you pick one area of your life. And I picked career, business, to transform, so you're operating in alignment with your core values, understanding what they are, that you're killing, you're uprooting whatever this negative belief, limiting belief is. And so I did this at a good time. I was transitioning, being laid off and starting the business. And I thought, all right, this is the area, and this would be great. And the transformation really took. This was years ago. And even today I look back on it and go, wow, that was so effective that I am not capable of returning to that toxic, stress yourself out, overwork, be out of balance.
I love it.
Capable of it. That is so rewarding in your growth. And I hear you talking about that in your own journey, where you see, wow, you really can overcome your conditioning and your programming to the point where it's like handled, and it's rewarding. And then, so recently the breakthrough for me has been, like, in my mind, I'm always thinking, I've got to work on that. I've got to work on that. And I had this breakthrough because I had started being attracted to, like, crystal sound balls, and I'm my last very sensitive to the noise. Anyway, I'll get to the point here. I was just drawn to Tibetan singing bowls, crystal sound bowls, these and they were incredible, this experience. And I just tried to just not get in my head and try and think through it too much and just go, there's something in me that needs this, that's being drawn to it. And I was with a friend who was visiting and brought her to one of these experiences, and we were driving. It was one of those Kodak moments where you remember what you were looking at when you got this epiphany. And it was just so simple. She said, yeah, all you have to do is receive. You don't need to work on anything. And that was so simple and transformational, because I think everything's, if I'm going to transform or I'm going to change or I'm going to accomplish something, I've got to work at it.
Mm.
And at this particular point in my life with what I was looking at, it was like, oh no, right now what you have to do is just receive. You give, you give, you give, receive, start radical self-care, you know.
About
And so,
rebalancing, the balancing.
so balancing the masculine and
Exactly.
feminine,
Yin and yang.
the giving and the taking.
Yeah.
And so I love what I'm hearing in you. There's so much credibility and validity in what you're sharing in your own story, because you walk your talk and you are in the fires of transformation, personally and professionally. You're looking at your stuff. You're facing your fears. And you know, the thing I remember about Tony Robbins when I really got into him and Unlimited Power back in the 80s,
It
that
used to be
he
crazy people. Only crazy people used to
yeah,
listen
yeah,
to Tony. Now,
because a lot of people were turned off by his intensity.
now everybody loves him. I
Yeah,
know.
his intensity and his like shocking approach. But Jim Rohn was his original mentor. And I remember reading, and I think it was in Unlimited Power when I was reading that book, about him talking about how he was self-taught. And like you, he just couldn't learn enough. Like the hundreds of books that he would read, and he was just gobbling things up, saturating his consciousness, his mind with, and then implementing, like he just saturated his being in that. And it doesn't surprise me that you're a Tony Robbins fan, because there needs to be that intensity, that commitment, that I'm going to do whatever it takes. And what I've told new people in this business is, who think, oh yeah, get rich quick, and oh, I paid my tens of thousands of dollars for the program. Do me is like, look, what you paid for was a college degree in real estate or a master's degree in real estate. You still have to show up for the classes. You still have to do the homework. You still have to do the internship. There are skills you've got to learn. You've got to learn the research and the analysis, and then how to qualify and how to talk to seller. You've got to learn a little, implement, especially analytical people, really analytical people. They think they have to know everything before they take action because they're afraid of making mistakes. And so I just love everything you're saying, because in your experience and everything you're saying, Ginger, is why I do this podcast. And what I keep saying to people is just, you've got to learn and do, make mistakes, fail forward. And what comes before all of that is mindset, overcoming fears, overcoming your programming, your conditioning, being willing to do the work. And it's more the inner work, because the outer work will happen as a result of that when you remove those blocks. So I'm going to get off my little Rayana rant and soapbox and just see what you have to say in response to all that, because I just love what you've been sharing, where you're coming from, who you are, your experience.
You've said a lot, so there's so much I could say. Well, the first thing that came to my mind was I heard a friend of mine was saying that intelligent ice is no match for ignorant fire.
Ugh.
right? So we can know, and we can be learning and then never take action because we just want to fill our mind with information, right? But when I was like in 1994, when I bought that 6-family house, I didn't know what it was like to rent, what it meant to rent out a house, to buy a 6-family house. I didn't know what, I was ignorant, but I was on fire and I did something. I took action, and then you learn, right? If I had stayed in the analysis of paralysis of analysis, and I'd read the books but did nothing, that's kind of like the intelligent ice. So
Yeah, you wouldn't
oh,
have had an asset to give to your husband in a divorce, and been okay walking away from my baby.
Yes,
You
I
know,
was
yeah,
okay with it.
yeah.
It's like, yes, okay, just take it. Just take it. Let me go. Yeah. Um, so that's one of the things that come to me, that the whole idea about taking action, even though you might be ignorant, you might be afraid, just take some action, just do something, take some intelligent action. I had to do the numbers, right? I looked at the numbers, but, um, but I did it, and that gets the ball rolling, and then you learn as you go, right? So now I'm embarking on a brand new, frontier in commercial real estate. And I feel very intimidated. After 30 years of being in residential real estate, I feel like I can talk about anything, in so many ways of, mortgages, and I could talk about title, clean up title, and that, just so many things I could talk about. But in the world of commercial, I feel like I'm a baby again. And so,
And good for you, though. It's good to be uncomfortable again, and good for you, and good for finding the right people.
yes,
That
yes.
the humility of that, and it makes life interesting, doesn't it?
And that's exactly right. That's exactly right. When to to be happy, we have to be progressing. We don't have to be at our goal, because as soon as we get at our goal, we know we're happy for like
You
24 hours,
pause,
and then
yeah. You know what's
we have to
interesting
be
about that?
progressive.
We talk about in real estate or stock or whatever is, getting the passive income so you can retire and live how you want. And, for years, but really, especially recently, as I am at that age, um, you know, I've had conversations over the last few years with people who, like, one of my best friends, she's never going to retire. Her mother is like 80 and she's not retired.
Mhm.
And I look at the Warren Buffetts and this and the Microsoft, Bill Gates, and the Elon Musks, and the Jeff Bezos, and the list goes on. And Trump, as much as I don't like him, he's 80, and Biden, and they're way beyond a retirement age, but they're not retired. And it's occurred to me recently that I'm not going to retire.
Yeah, in 1998, I read there was a magazine called Worth. It was a very good magazine, and I was in a shop, and I was reading. There was an article that said, "Don't retire. There are better things to do." And
I
one of the
love that.
things, one of the things that it said, and I will never forget it because it actually altered my mind. This was 1998, and it said that the concept of retirement was created during the Industrial Revolution, because the workers were, when they were younger, they were more valuable in working the steel mills and doing all that hard physical labor. And so the industrialists would retire people at a certain age, and then they would get new people in. And it was a mental construct that was created, but that stuck, because things stick in our consciousness for years later. It's
And
amazing
in a
how
culture.
right. It sticks, right? So if we don't think that way, then it doesn't become our reality. And I think that's really important. I had a dear friend who retired, and then she was sick all the time. But when she was working, she was busy. She was moving and she was thin, and she would then because
Well, think of all the
it's a mental,
dementia.
it's a
Yeah,
mental, it's
all the
mental.
dementia, right, and the Alzheimer's and the breakdown, and I completely agree with you. And how if you retire and you don't, like, look at Bill Gates, he retired and he works harder than he ever did at Microsoft, solving world problems with the Gates Foundation. But it's just had me rethink, like, oh, I don't think I could retire completely, because I'm the type of person, it's healthier when I get up. I actually need to be challenged. I need something there's a reason to get up in the morning. There's a purpose. There have been times in my life where I'm not as busy, not that you want to be stressed out busy, and I've felt a little lost, like, whoa, and I've realized, well, that's not healthy for me. I do better when I have a challenge, when I'm busy. Now, that balanced with being in a position financially that I can go travel for 3 months if I want to.
Mhm.
And yet I also have always got projects going that I have a reason to live in the morning. So I also think that if there are people listening who ever see this, it liberates a lot of the working class and middle class, where it's become more and more difficult for people to save and prepare for retirement. I think that's why a lot of people get into real estate investing and realize, oh, it's not easy, it's hard, is I think a lot of people have shame or guilt that they're not as prepared as some financial planner tells them. And that it's like, look, there is no shame in continuing to work and make a contribution, but do it on your terms. And I think that's what the promise of real estate investing does, or investing in a business, or investing in stocks, whatever it is, investing in something that gives you choice, gives you freedom of how much or how little you want to work, and you having choice on how you spend your time, your life, and you have choice as to, yeah, I'm going to work hard right now because I'm going to be traveling around the world for 3 months, and I want to be able to do that. So I just really, I've been rethinking that whole concept of what retirement is, like retiring at 65 and not having to work. No, that just
I have
seems,
a dear friend who's my age, and we kind of he far surpassed me. A dear friend on the East Coast, and um, hard worker. You know, that Portuguese work ethic. You know, real hard worker. And he said, "I'm going to retire when I'm 35." You know, he and I knew each other. We were in our 20s. I'm going to retire when I'm 35. And he said one day, I said, "Hey, what are you doing?" His name was Dan. I said, "What are you doing driving in that crappy car, Dan? You have all this real estate," because he was a big investor. He goes, "What? 35,000 for a car? I could buy a house with that." Right. Because he was always buying distressed properties, and right. So, so then 35 comes and goes. And I'm like, "Hey, Dan, you retired yet?" Nah, when I'm 45. When I'm 45. So
and it
like
wasn't
40,
because he needed the money, right?
so no, 40, well,
He
no,
just wasn't ready. Yeah.
during the crash in '08, he bought 65 apartment houses during the crash, and then he sold, like, he's just, now they're all paid off. Bought half, I'm sorry, he sold half of them recently, and now they're all been paid off because they bought them like really cheap during the crash, in distressed areas. So then I flew out to New England about a year ago, and I saw him, and we had lunch, had a nice time, and he has a beautiful car, beautiful brand new car, and I didn't say anything, but I was I was remembering, and then now he's in his early 50s, and he says, I'm like, "Dan, you haven't retired yet?" He goes, "No." He goes, "I might take the summer off though." You know? And I just like laugh because I love it, and I was so inspired by talking with him, because he and I grew up together in the industry. um but I didn't buy like 65 apartment houses during that. My stress level, I couldn't handle it. But he has a high stress tolerance, so to him it's just a game. So everybody's
Yeah.
different. But I love it. And I said, yeah, you were supposed to retire when you were 35. He goes, yeah, no, but I'm going to take the summer off. And I said, I'm going to call you. And I talked to him, I think in June, and I haven't talked to him. I think I'm due to call him. But when I talked to him, I said, yeah, I'm going to call. I was messing with him and I didn't do it. I said, I'm going to call you over the summer. And if you're working, if you got a deal going on, I'm going to chastise you. And then we just start laughing. Right. So, I think that's the way it should be,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
especially if you find something you love doing, just do it. Before the Industrial Revolution, people didn't retire. They just slowed down. They spend more time with their family. They still showed up for work to make the shoes in the morning or whatever they did.
I think the key is not tolerating or putting up with being a cog in a wheel and doing something that sucks the soul out of your eyeballs.
There you go. There you
But
go.
it's doing something that is meaningful and gives your life purpose that you enjoy.
Yeah.
That you would do it even if you weren't paid for it, because it's so enjoyable to you and it gives your life meaning. I think that's the key.
That's an ideal. It's an ideal.
Yeah.
I can't say that everything about real estate I would do for
No,
free.
I'm not saying real estate. I'm saying in general, when
In general.
someone can find, like for me, I've really identified that if I'm being creative
Mhm.
in some way, and I'm using my creativity to create something tangible that's beautiful, or I'm using my creativity to serve people and help them typical coach, or if I'm using my creativity to solve a problem, then that's fun for me. That's not work. And then
Mhm.
my life has meaning.
Mhm.
It's finding something, and my focus now is more on career transitions and career coaching. And I really enjoy that because I like helping people make transitions. I've been coaching real estate investors for like 8 years solely, mostly that, but I've been a coach for 24. And I really like helping people make transitions and helping them really understand what their value is, to evaluate all that, and then helping them forge that plan and then seeing them make that change, that transformation, and see their value. Because when someone's making a career transition, it can be really scary, just like transitioning from a job into having a business as a real estate investor. And I think a lot of people fail in real estate investing, and it's a 95% failure rate because they don't realize, oh, this is a business. I'm a business owner. Okay, I've got to set this up as a business and learn how to run a business. And it's not just about doing a deal. So I enjoy helping people make those transitions, and I think we need to redefine retirement, and we need to also, anybody in real estate investing needs to step back and go, what really is your why? What's your motivation here? And is it a negative motivation? You're trying to move away from a pain. Mine was, I don't want to end up like my mom, barely squeaking by on Social Security. Or is it a positive motivation? I want to just have the financial freedom to travel whenever I want in my, as I age, and not worry about it. That was a positive motivation. So I think, I don't think enough people, I think they're grabbing at a dream out of fear. Oh, that's going to solve the retirement problem, instead of, what do I want to do with this? The main motivation for me with this podcast was to have people like you on here who found their own unique path in doing it on your terms that work for you.
Done that for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we get sold by the big training companies and everybody, every coach in there, and any Tom, Dick, and Harry who's trying to sell their 10,000, 20,000, whatever coaching program that, wholesaling, rehab, fix and flips, passive income, that these traditional ways of doing it. And there are so many creative ways that you can make real estate, make money in real estate that are in alignment with who you are and how
Right.
you want to operate. So if you were to jump up on a rooftop and you had a captive audience hanging on your every word, and they were going to hear it and heed it and go out there and really take it to heart and implement your advice, what would your advice for them be, Ginger?
Oh, the pressure, the pressure. What am I going to say to this? There's so much to learn. There's so much to know. I'd say, be an avid learner, have faith in yourself, pray and know that there is a higher source ready to help you if you do your part. Set your intentions, work to enjoy the process, and get at it.
I like it. Yeah, it's not this simple answer. It's like a process, like manage the internal and the external. Rose liked it. My VA liked it. She's got a little heart for you. Anything else you want to say before we wrap up? I've thoroughly enjoyed this session with you, Ginger. You're such a delight, and I've enjoyed your story, and I really appreciate who you are.
Yes, you too. You too. Great questions, great insights. Thank you so much, Rihanna. Anything else I'd like to say? Yeah, I would say the biggest thing is just have faith in yourself. Have faith in yourself and be consistent. Be consistent. I'm a big advocate of positive affirmation. So don't worry about the problems that are in front of you. Don't worry about them. Take every problem and create a positive affirmation to countermand it, and then focus on it. What I didn't say, and I'll say this because I think it's important, when the crash happened and my income went from big to zero overnight, what I did is I wrote down what I wanted in a notebook, and I did the treadmill every day for 45 minutes with positive affirmations and exactly what I wanted.
That's phenomenal because you're moving right, left, you're moving your
I
body.
did that it took 6 months, 45 minutes a day, running, walking,
Powerful reprogramming. Wow.
and
Love
I needed it because the crash was real. It was real. It was like you see in the movies where you have people like running from the fire, like all the buildings are falling down behind them and the fires and all that. And you just keep running, and then you just barely, it felt like every day you were just barely missing being destroyed. It's crazy. And in order to countermand that, I needed to have a hyper energy. So I would say if I would leave whatever problem you're going through, whatever issue you're going through, I would say write down the opposite of what you want,
and
whatever
then
it is,
match the energy of the
and
intensity.
match the
What
energy
you
is
did is
100%.
you
100%.
matched
That's
the,
what Tony teaches us. And yeah, and yeah, if you're really in a funk, go to see Tony Robbins and go go,
yeah.
and get that extra energy of the 10,000 people he is now attracting. When I used to see him, there were like 500-600 people in the room. One time I was on stage with him, and I think about that, like you could barely, get close to him now, right? So it was so I would say that's what I would leave people with. Whatever problem you have, make a positive affirmation to countermand that, and then match the energy of the fear, the anxiety, whatever it is, you bring that
Match the
energy.
intensity and the
Yep.
energy.
Create that energy, and pray affirmatively that God hears you and he will help, she, whatever you believe, the universe.
Are you an Abraham Hicks person?
I no, but yes and no. I've listened.
Yeah.
They were back in the 90s too.
Yeah.
Little tapes, right?
Yeah.
And little tapes. So
It's training your mind to be in the habit of happiness, in the habit of being positive, in the habit of I can do this. And affirmations don't work if you just sit in front of the mirror for 5 minutes in the morning. the thing that makes the difference is if there is an intense fear, you've got to match it with an
100%,
intense.
100%. I thought I discovered that.
You
I thought
did.
that
I'm
was my.
re-emphasizing it, and I agree with you. Yeah,
I've never heard any other human say this, so I appreciate what you were saying. Oh, except
yeah,
for Tony, but he has his own way of
yeah.
saying it. So yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what I would say. So
Well, thank you so much, Ginger. I'm sure our listeners have gotten a lot of value. If you want to connect with anyone or make yourself available to have people reach out to you, once the broadcast's over, go in the group, Unstoppable Real Estate Investor, find this feed and put your contact information in the comments so people can contact you if they want to, if you'd like, if
okay,
you want to be available for that.
sounds good. Okay, thank
All
you,
right,
Rihanna.
bye, everybody. Go out there, take action, no excuses, just results. If you need a little help, you're stuck, or you're in making a big transition in your life or your business, please reach out to me. You can text me or call me directly, and I'll be happy to schedule a free connection call with you to just chat about what you need help with. Ginger, thank you so much. I look forward to staying in touch and connecting with each other further. Bye, everybody. Have a great week. Happy Hump Day. Get over the hump, take action, manage your mindset, and let's see what amazing things you accomplish this week. Bye, everybody.
Bye.